What if the barn you built with your own hands was ordered to be destroyed? That's what a black veteran faced when his HOA demanded he tear it down, claiming it broke their rules. Their order turned to silence when his old army team arrived. At dusk, and by sunrise, the barn stood taller than before. Imagine this. A soldier steps off a battlefield thousands of miles away, trading dust and gunfire for the clean-cut lawns of suburbia. His boots, still heavy with memory, press into the grass of his own land. For the first time in years, silence surrounds him. But it feels uneasy, too quiet. His barn rises in the distance, raw beams catching the morning light. To him, it's more than timber. It's a place to anchor restless nights, to remind himself he built something that couldn't be taken by war. But in this perfect neighborhood, it becomes another entry in the long list of stories of injustice and everyday racism examples hidden behind polite smiles. Behind curtains, neighbors watch. Their eyes linger, not with welcome, but with suspicion. A whisper cuts through the silence. A woman says, "Did he even get permission?" Another voice replies, "Rules are rules." It's the start of HOA versus black veteran, rules wrapped in civility but sharp with exclusion. Another instance of systemic racism exposed through paper, policies, and silence. The barn stands unfinished but alive. The smell of pine lingers. In the air, sawdust scattered like confetti from a battle well fought. Every nail driven is therapy. Every plank lifted is proof his hands can still create after years of destruction. But already, it carries more than wood. It carries conflict. Soon it will test whether a community values rules over people, or whether Brotherhood can build something stronger. The veteran steps outside, hearing fragments, feeling the weight of eyes but not support. The fence now marks more than property lines. It marks the gulf between courage and complicity. Children peer through its slats, wide-eyed, but are pulled back by cautious hands. Lawn mowers hum, doors close, curtains twitch. Normalcy continues, but in that performance of everyday life, a choice is made. Silence. The fence that once stood as wood and paint now becomes a wall of separation. On one side, a man fighting for dignity. On the other, a crowd too afraid to stand. And in this division, the real war reveals itself. Not loud, not violent, but devastating in its quiet. The notice lies on his kitchen table, words underlined in red ink. Rain taps against the window, steady, relentless. Outside, the barn glows, faintly under a single floodlight, casting long shadows across the yard. He sits in silence, fingers brushing the paper. His reflection glints off the surface, fractured by legal jargon. To anyone else, it's just paper. To him, it's an enemy dressed in bureaucracy. A memory intrudes, writing letters home during deployment, promising he'd return and build something lasting. He did. And now, strangers with clipboards want it gone. The storm outside grows louder, thunder rolling. The barn creaks but does not bend, standing as if it knows the fight has only begun. His jaw tightens. He whispers, "Not this time." Across the street, another curtain shifts. A neighbor watches, then lets the blinds snap shut. The crowd's silence becomes its own verdict, one that condemns not him, but them. And so the opening battle lines are drawn. A soldier against a system, a barn against prejudice, a man against the quiet weight of his community's fear. The envelope is tucked neatly into his mailbox, folded with precision, sealed like it carried the weight of law. He tears it open, eyes scanning lines that speak of community standards and non-compliance. The language is calm, sterile, yet every word drips with exclusion. His jaw tightens. To anyone else, it's paperwork. To him, it's a shot fired. He holds the letter up to the light. The ink seems heavier than the paper can bear. It reads, "Remove. Structure within 10 days or face daily fines. His voice is low, almost a whisper. So this is how they fight. Across the street, a neighbor lingers by her garden hose, pretending to water plants. Her eyes dart toward him, then down again. The silence in that glance says more than her words ever could. He remembers another letter, written years ago in a combat zone. His handwriting shaky, promising he'd come home and build something permanent. That letter carried hope. This one carries threat. He drops it on the kitchen table. The paper slides, landing crooked, like it has no balance. And in that crooked sheet lies the truth. This isn't just about rules. It's about erasure. Thunder rolls over the clubhouse, windows humming with rain. Folding chairs scrape. Faces arrange themselves into smiles that never reach the eyes. A gavel taps once, neat and final. One voice says, "Call to order." Another adds, "Agenda item, unauthorized structure." The veteran stands. He replies, "Say barn. If you're going to take it, name it." Polite laughter skims the room like a blade. The president smooths a page. He says, "We're here to maintain community standards." The veteran replies, "Standards or favorites?" A woman near the door whispers, "Keep your voice down." Another answers, "He's right." The whisper dies when heads turn. Lightning whitens the ceiling. The rain gets louder. 3 sentences hold the room still. The treasurer says, "We appreciate your service, but rules are rules." The veteran nods once. He replies, "They keep changing when I touch them." A man in the back says, "This isn't personal." The veteran answers, "It always is when it's my name on your paper." The crowd shifts, restless. Someone coughs. Phones tilt up, recording without courage. His memory cuts in, a medic tent, a hand squeezing his. "Hold the line, brother." The tent flap slaps like tonight's storm. The president lifts the gavel again. He says, "Comply within 10 days. A teenager near the wall murmurs. Then Wise Harris's shed still up. The room freezes with the thunder. The barn stands, silent under morning light, yet in the hall of the HOA, his name is read aloud, like a warning. The president leans forward, voice steady, rehearsed. He says, "Fines begin today." The numbers spill like an auctioneer's chant, reducing sweat, labor, and memory into a ledger entry. The veteran raises his head. He says, "Say it clear. You're not fining wood. You're fining me." A murmur ripples. Someone shifts in their chair. Another clears their throat. No one answers. The treasurer taps her pen. She says, "We apply rules equally." He steps closer to the table. He replies, "Then where's the fine for Harris's shed, or for Miller's extension?" The pen freezes midair. Silence swallows the room. Behind him, neighbors shift uneasily, eyes fixed on the floor tiles instead of the man speaking truth. He recalls his name once called on a roll sheet overseas, a commander's voice reminding men that names carried honor, not shame. Here, it is different. His name has become a line item, a number stacked against him. The gavel strikes again. Order. He folds the notice, slides it into his pocket, and walks out. The crowd parts without speaking. Their silence is its own verdict. The fence stretches between properties, plain wood, yet it carries more weight than steel. He leans against it one evening, hands rough from work, eyes on the barn. Across the boards, neighbors gather in casual clusters, voices hushed but sharp. One says, "He should have followed procedure." Another mutters, "It's not our fight." A third adds, "Don't give the board a reason to look at us." The veteran turns his head. He replies, "You already gave them one. Me." The words drop heavy. No one answers. A woman tugs her child back from the slats. The boy had been peeking through, eyes wide, curious about the man they called Trouble. A mower hums in the distance, doors shut, curtains twitch. The street performs normalcy while pretending not to see. He remembers another fence, halfway across, The world, barbed and rusted. On one side, comrades dug in together. On the other, silence from command. He remembers the sting of waiting for help that never came. Back in suburbia, the wood creaks under his grip. This fence doesn't just split yards. It splits courage from fear. He steps away slowly, the whispers trailing behind. Each one reminds him, here, he is still outnumbered. Night drops heavy, but memory breaks through like gunfire. He is back in desert heat, sand whipping his face, bullets screaming past. The only thing that matters is the man beside him. Cover. Me! Brother! There is no hesitation, no color, no rank, just survival. He remembers dragging a bleeding comrade through dust, the grip of another soldier pulling them both into cover. Their skin tones blend under sweat and blood, erased by necessity. Now his hands grip the barn's beams, the same calloused grip that once hauled lives from death. He whispers, "We never asked permission to save each other." In the HOA hall, those same words echo in his chest, but never leave his lips. Here, Brotherhood is replaced by clipped notices, by neighbors pretending not to see. The storm outside cracks lightning across the sky, white light flashing like mortar fire. For a second, he is back there, hearing laughter after survival, voices, promising, "When this ends, we'll build something of our own." Back in the present, his chest rises slow. He has built it. And now strangers in polished shoes want it erased. The notice boards say, "Open meetings," but decisions are already written before the doors unlock. In back rooms, coffee cups clink and pens scratch signatures no one else will ever see. What passes for governance smells of quiet deals. A board member mutters once, "It's just paperwork, nothing personal." He catches the words in the hallway, sharp as a knife. He replies, "It's personal when my name's on your paper." The man avoids his eyes, shuffling past. The echo of footsteps says, more than apology. Neighbors see minutes posted online, sterile lines about non-compliance and procedural votes. But in reality, the votes happen before questions are asked, behind closed doors where silence is the only witness. He remembers another tent, another back room, commanders deciding which platoon would advance, who would be left exposed. Back then, secrecy cost lives. Here, it is designed to cost him dignity. The veteran stands outside one of those public meetings, hearing muffled voices through the wall, his name carried like an object passed around. He doesn't knock. He lets their whispers convict them. The rain hits harder on the roof that night. Even the storm knows corruption grows best in the dark. The mailbox should have been ordinary, bills, flyers, maybe a letter from an old friend. Instead, it becomes a front line. One morning, he opens it to find the HOA's notice torn in half, stuffed back inside like an insult. The edges are jagged, wet from the dew. Another day, a scrap of paper waits for him. No letterhead, no signature. Just 5 words scrawled in black ink. "You don't belong out here." He holds it up against the light, fingers steady but eyes burning. He says, "Cowards never sign their names." Across the street, a curtain twitches. Someone has been watching, waiting for his reaction. He folds the note slowly, slides it into his pocket. Silence becomes the sender's only shield. He remembers mail call overseas. Soldiers clutching envelopes like lifelines, one man weeping at a child's handwriting, another pressing lipstick-stained paper to his chest. Letters meant survival then. Here, letters mean siege. The box closes with a metallic clang that rings louder than it should. What once held connection now carries threats. The street hums with sprinklers and lawnmowers, pretending nothing has happened. But the war has found its mailbox. The hall smells faintly of coffee and polish, but the air is heavier than smoke. His name is called, and every head turns. He rises slowly, papers in hand, voice steady. He says, "I fought for this country. I bled for it. And now I'm fined for building on the land I own." The words hang there, sharp, impossible to ignore. Chair creaks, someone shifts, but no one speaks. He scans the faces. He says, "All I'm asking is fairness. If you believe this barn violates your rules, then tell me why Harris's shed still stands." The silence thickens. Eyes drop to the floor, hands fidget with phones. The crowd isn't siding with the board, but they aren't siding with him either. A teenager in the back whispers, "He's right." His mother presses his arm down, shushing him. The whisper dies before it lives. He remembers his unit surrounded, pinned down. For hours, silence meant death. Breaking it with a call for cover saved them all. Here, silence means complicity, and no one dares break it. He exhales hard, the gavel striking in the distance. The meeting ends, but the verdict has already been delivered, through silence. The president taps the microphone, voice echoing through the community hall. Outstanding fines will now be read into the record. His name comes first. Each dollar, amount rolls out like a public sentencing. 100, 200, more by the day. The numbers stack until they drown out his humanity. He doesn't move, doesn't flinch, just stares at the board with eyes that carry deserts and trenches in them. A neighbor whispers, "That's enough to break a man." Another hisses back, "Then don't watch." The treasurer looks up briefly, lips pressed tight, before reading another figure. He stands. He says, "You're not reading fines. You're reading me. My name, my sweat, my nights without sleep, all reduced to your ledger." The words crack the silence, but only for a moment. The gavel falls once. Out of order. He remembers his name shouted in a roll call overseas, followed by a crisp, "Present, sir." Back then, his name meant honor. Here, it means debt. Folds the notice, slides it into his pocket, and walks past rows of bowed heads. Each averted gaze is another line item, proof that silence costs more than money ever could. The paper on his kitchen table blurs, words swimming. His mind drifts back to a different kind of letter, written under a flickering flashlight in a tent that shook from nearby blasts. Ink smeared by sweat, hand unsteady from exhaustion. "I'll come home," he had written. "I'll build something worth keeping, I promise." Outside, mortars rained. Inside, he clung to the pen as though it were armor. That letter wasn't just ink. It was survival. A vow that gave the chaos meaning. Now another letter lies before him, printed by a machine. Cold, lifeless. It demands destruction, not hope. Remove non-compliant structure immediately. He holds both memories in his mind, the vow of creation, the order for erasure. The contrast hits like recoil. He whispers to himself, "I didn't crawl through." Fire to let paper burn my dream. A clap of thunder shakes the windows. The barn outside groans under the storm, but it stands. Just like he had, night after night, in places far harsher than this. The letter lies flat, silent. But he knows one truth. Promises made in fire aren't broken by ink. The storm comes like an uninvited witness. Rain slashes against windows, gutters overflow, and lightning cracks across the sky in jagged defiance. Inside the HOA hall, the storm's voice drowns out even the gavel. Every flash of light exposes the room like an interrogation lamp. Faces look harsher, shadows deeper. The president's words about compliance are swallowed by thunder, as if even nature refuses to let them stand unchallenged. Someone whispers, "Feels like the sky's on his side." Another mutters, "Or maybe it's warning us." Outside, the barn stands in silhouette, beams gleaming wet under the downpour. Each bolt of lightning strikes behind it, making the structure look larger, indestructible. To the veteran, it's more than coincidence. It's a reminder that storms don't always tear down. Sometimes they fortify. He remembers rain pounding on a metal roof in a war zone, crouched with his unit, sharing rations, laughing in defiance of death. Back then, the storm had been a shield, masking their movement. Tonight, it is the same. The gavel slams again, but thunder answers louder. The storm isn't neutral. It has chosen its side. Night settles, the streetlights humming low, windows glowing faint behind curtains. He walks the block in silence, the barn's outline still visible. In the dark, that's when a voice breaks through the quiet. From a porch shadow, a neighbor whispers, "It isn't right what they're doing to you." He pauses, eyes narrowing. He replies, "Then say it when they're watching." The man looks away, shoulders folding. He says, "I've got kids. I can't risk the board turning on me." The veteran's laugh is short, bitter. He says, "They already did. To me." The door creaks open, light spilling just enough to reveal fear in the neighbor's face. Then it shuts quick, like truth has slipped out by mistake. Another time. A woman presses a grocery bag into his hand, murmuring, "Stay strong." Her eyes flick nervously at passing cars, voice swallowed before it can rise. He remembers soldiers in a trench, whispering in the dark about the families waiting back home. Their whispers carried hope. These carry excuses. Back on his porch, he stares at the barn. The street returns to silence, but the whispers linger, heavier than the storm. They prove everyone knows, and chooses not to stand. The meeting turns tense, voices rising just enough to ripple the quiet. The veteran stands firm, papers in one hand, the barn visible through the window behind him. The HOA president leans forward, jabbing a finger. He says, "Tear it down, or we'll bury you in fines." Phones tilt up. Someone in the back is recording. Their screen glowing faint in the dim hall. The veteran's reply comes sharp, steady. He says, "You can't bury what already survived war." Gasps break. A cough muffled. A chair squeaks. The gavel slams. "Order!" But the echo of his words has already spread. By the next morning, the clip hits social feeds. A grainy video of a lone man facing a table of polished suits. His calm, their arrogance. The contrast is undeniable. Comments flood in. "This man's a hero. Why target a veteran? Stand with him." He remembers crowds cheering his unit, returning home flags waving. This time, the applause comes from strangers behind screens, strangers who see injustice clearer than his neighbors do in person. In the neighborhood, blinds stay drawn. Online, millions are watching. Silence at home. A roar everywhere else. Each morning, another envelope. White paper, black ink, the same threat repeated. The pile grows on his kitchen table, thin sheets stacked like ammunition. Fines double, deadlines shorten, language sharpens. To the board, it is pressure. To him, it is noise. He steps outside, eyes on the barn. The frame creaks in the wind, rain stains darkening its beams, but it stands. Every letter meant to weaken him only makes the structure look stronger in contrast. A neighbor whispers as he walks by. How long can he hold out? Another answers, "As long as that thing does." He runs his hand over the wood, the grain rough beneath his palm. He mutters, "You've carried worse." He remembers his unit under siege, rations low, days blending. Each night, they woke to gunfire, each dawn still alive. Survival wasn't loud, it was endurance. The mailbox clangs shut again, another notice shoved inside. He doesn't bother opening it. The barn looms over his shoulder, silent but defiant, a comrade refusing. Surrender. In the quiet of suburbia, the war looks invisible, but anyone watching closely can see. It is siege warfare now, and the barn is holding the line. The board sits straighter these days, but their voices tremble at the edges. In one meeting, a member leans toward the president, whispering too loudly. He says, "This is getting ugly." The president's jaw tightens. He answers, "Stay the course," but cracks are showing. Another member skips a vote altogether, citing family emergencies. Another fiddles with his pen, avoiding eye contact as fines are read aloud. The unity that once felt ironclad is fraying thread by thread. From the back row, a woman mutters, "Why just him?" Others built without asking. Her words ripple like a pebble tossed in still water. The president slams the gavel harder than usual, voice cracking. He says, "This meeting is adjourned." The sound of chairs scraping fills the hall, but so do whispers. Louder now, harder to ignore. He remembers sandbags collapsing under pressure overseas, the wall holding until one corner gave way. He remembers watching cracks spread faster than anyone could stop them. Back in the present, the same. Truth lingers in his eyes. Authority doesn't collapse all at once. It crumbles first in whispers, in hesitation, in silence that no longer sides with power. The president's pen shakes. His control is slipping. Bills stack on his counter, red ink screaming louder than words. Sleep comes shallow, broken by dreams of sand and sirens. Each morning he sits at the kitchen table, staring at the notices, wondering how many more it will take to crush him. One evening, he walks out to the barn, flashlight in hand. The beam catches the scars in the wood, rain stains, chipped nails, crooked panels. He runs his hand across it like a medic feeling for a pulse. He whispers, "Do I tear you down to save myself, or stand here until I break?" The barn groans in the wind, as if answering. Across the street, a neighbor leans against his car, watching. Their eyes meet briefly. The man looks away. He remembers holding a wounded comrade's hand, the medic shouting, "He won't last if you move him." The choice then was the same. Risk everything, or surrender early. He had chosen to hold the line. Back in the yard, he exhales, the flashlight beam shaking in his grip. The war inside him isn't fought with bullets now, but with exhaustion. One thing is certain. Every soldier reaches a breaking point. His is coming fast. The phone sits heavy on the counter, screen glowing in the dim kitchen. He scrolls past names he hasn't touched in years, men who knew him not as a neighbor but as a brother. His thumb hovers, then presses. The line clicks. A voice answers, raspy but alive. "Been a while, Sergeant." His chest tightens. He says, "They're trying to tear it down." A pause. Then a chuckle, low and steady. The reply comes, "Not while we still breathe." He closes his eyes. For the first time in weeks, his shoulders ease. He can almost hear boots stomping on gravel again, the sound of men moving as one. Outside, the barn glows under a lone floodlight. The rain has stopped, leaving the air thick and waiting. Curtains shift across the street, neighbors watching, sensing something is about to change. He remembers headlights cutting through desert night, a convoy rolling in when all seemed lost. Relief flooding his chest as his brothers arrived. The same feeling returns now, humming in his bones. The call ends with 5 words that land like steel. "We'll be there tomorrow night." He sets the phone down gently. The war isn't his, alone anymore. Reinforcements are coming. The hall smells of polish and rain. A wall clock ticks loud enough to count breaths. The gavel waits like a loaded word. The president says, 48 hours, demolish the structure. The treasurer adds, non-compliance incurs daily fines. The veteran replies, say my name while you read it. The president corrects him, eyes flat. Mr. Carter, remove the barn. Whispers skitter along folding chairs. Phones rise without courage. The notice shakes slightly in his hand, not from fear, but fury held still. A neighbor mutters, just follow the rules. He doesn't turn. He says, they bend easy for others. Someone offers, we appreciate your service. He answers, Then respect it here. He remembers orders shouted through static, dust burning his lungs. Hold this line for 48 minutes. He did. Men lived. Orders ended. The president insists. This isn't personal. The veteran replies. It's erasure. The president says, our duty is standards. He answers, my duty was you sleeping safe. The gavel warns, comply. He nods once. Noted. He folds the paper clean and deliberate. The clock hammers the moment into shape. The exit sign glows like a dare. A pen clicks in the president's grip, plastic straining. He steps toward the mic, shoulders squared, eyes lifting to the room that has chosen silence. His next words will make it choose again. The paper feels heavier than steel in his palm. His voice cracks on the first syllable, but sharpens like a blade by the last. He says, you think this barn is wood and nails? It's every night I survived so you could sleep free. The room freezes. A cough rattles in the back. Someone's chair creaks. Phones tilt higher, recording. The president's face tightens, jaw stiff. He says, we are not here for speeches. The veteran cuts in. Then hear the truth. This structure kept me alive before it was built. Every beam is a memory. Tear it down, you tear down more than wood. Gasps ripple, then fall silent. A man in the crowd whispers, he's right. Another hisses back, quiet. He remembers, his hands gripping a rifle under desert stars, whispering to himself, one more night, one more sunrise. The same mantra echoes now as he grips the lectern. The treasurer's pen trembles. The notice in his other hand shakes faintly. He leans forward, voice low, unshakable. He says, if you want it gone, come take it down yourself. The gavel slams, but the sound doesn't erase his words. It only frames them. The president grips his pen like it's a weapon. His hand twitches, plastic straining under pressure. The veteran's words still hang in the air, heavier than any fine. Silence presses down on the room until it cracks with a small snap. The pen breaks in two, ink bleeding onto his fingers. Gasps move through the crowd, not from loyalty to the veteran, but from the sight of control slipping in plain view. Authority shatters, not with a shout, but with the sound of cheap plastic breaking. The president tries to speak, but his voice catches. Order. This is out of... His throat closes on the word. He wipes his hand with a handkerchief. Ink, staining white cloth like guilt that won't wash. The treasurer avoids his eyes, shuffling papers without reading them. A board member shifts, lips pressed thin, their silence more condemning than any protest. The veteran remembers the enemy commander dropping his rifle, the whole line collapsing once their leader faltered. Weakness spreads faster than fire. Back. In the hall, he stands taller. His barn isn't the only thing refusing to break. The room has seen it now. Their leader's silence is louder than his commands. The notice still burns in his hand, but memory drags him somewhere else. Another. Order another ultimatum. A commander's voice through static. Fall back. Leave the wounded. He had looked at his brothers bleeding in the dust, then at the retreating line. Obeying meant survival. Defying meant loyalty. He chose defiance. Bullets tore the sand, smoke, stung his lungs, but he hauled the man across his shoulders. He shouted, we don't leave our own. That was the creed then. It is the creed now. The board's command echoes the same way. Tear it down. 48 hours. The phrasing is different, but the tone is the same. Abandon what matters. He lifts his head in the hall, eyes sharp, jaw tight. He says, I've defied worse orders than yours. A neighbor whispers, what's he talking about? Another answers, war. The gavel taps again, weaker this time, a desperate attempt to hold control. But the room has felt it. The fracture between a man who lived by loyalty and leaders who lived by paperwork. The barn is no longer just a structure. It is his wounded comrade, carried through fire, refusing to be left behind. The hall has gone, quiet, but not empty. Dozens of eyes track him, waiting, weighing. They aren't judges, not yet, but they are a jury forming in silence. Every word he speaks bounces off them, sticking where the gavel cannot erase. He feels their gaze, steady and unsure, like rifles held, but not fired. He says, "You know I'm right. Rules don't apply the same. You see it. You live here too." A man in the second row shifts, eyes dropping. A woman clutches her purse tighter, refusing to look at him. He remembers dust in his eyes, the ridge lined with comrades. He had shouted for cover fire. For a second, no one moved. Then one voice had broken the silence. "I got you." And the whole line followed. Back in the room, he waits for that one voice. It doesn't come. Only coughs, nervous whispers, shoes scuffing against tile. The crowd isn't siding with the board anymore. But they aren't siding with him either. Their silence balances in the middle, ready to tip. He tightens his grip on the lectern. The verdict isn't in the gavel's hand. It's in theirs, and they know it. The meeting spills into the hallway, but the real noise begins in whispers. Two board members huddle near the water fountain, voices low. One says, "This is going too far." The other warns, "Keep your voice down." The first presses. What if he fights back in court? We'll look like fools. The president's shadow falls across them. His jaw clenches, voice sharp. He says, "Stay the course." But the crack is visible. One board member avoids eye contact, papers clutched too tight. Another skips the next session altogether, citing family obligations. Their unity unravels in corners, in spaces they think no one is watching. From across the hall, the veteran leans against the wall, arms folded. He doesn't need to hear every word. The shifting eyes, the lowered tones. He knows the sound of fracture. He remembers enemy lines once firm, their commander barking orders, until a single soldier broke formation. The whole flank collapsed within hours. Weakness spreads fastest, in silence. Back in suburbia, the same truth takes root. The president's authority no longer echoes. It whispers, and whispers, once started, only grow. He steps out into the night, the storm clearing overhead. For the first time, the cracks aren't in him. They're in them. Night drops heavy over the neighborhood, still and tense. The barn looms in shadow, floodlight flickering against its beams. Then in the distance, headlights appear. One, then two. Then a convoy rolling slow down the street. Engines low, steady, purposeful. Neighbors peek through blinds, curtains snapping shut when beams cut across their living rooms. The hum of trucks grows louder until gravel crunches in his driveway. Doors open. Boots hit the ground. He steps outside, stunned. Familiar silhouettes move toward him, broad shoulders, steady strides. Not neighbors, brothers. One voice breaks the night. "We didn't leave you back then. We won't leave you now." Laughter follows, hard and warm, the kind that carried through firefights and long marches. The veteran's chest tightens, eyes burning, but his stance never wavers. The barn stands behind him like a soldier on watch. Now it isn't just his. It belongs to all of them. He remembers convoys arriving under desert moonlight, headlights piercing sandstorms, men stepping out like salvation itself. That same feeling washes over him here. The street is no longer quiet suburbia. It is a battlefield. And reinforcements have arrived. They gather in the driveway, boots tracking mud, shoulders bumping in half hugs that speak louder than words. Time hasn't broken their rhythm. It has only hardened it. Faces older, hair grayer, but the same steel in their eyes. One claps him on the back, rough and certain. "We didn't leave you on the battlefield. We won't leave you here." Another lifts a toolbox from his truck, smirking. "Let them fine us all. Try tearing down what Brotherhood built. Laughter rolls through the group, low and defiant, echoing like it once did in trenches when fear needed drowning. The veteran feels the weight lift from his chest, replaced by something he hasn't felt in months, strength in numbers. Neighbors watch from their porches, silent, pretending to check mail long after dark. Their faces flicker with something new. Hesitation, even respect. He remembers nights in the desert, a circle of soldiers around a fire, trading jokes to drown out the war. The bond forged there now hammers into the ground of his driveway. The barn looms behind them, not a structure, but a mission, and the mission is clear. Rebuild, resist, and remind everyone watching what loyalty looks like. They move like a unit, no orders needed. Toolboxes open with the precision of weapons crates. Hammers replace rifles, nails replace bullets, and the rhythm of construction echoes like gunfire in the quiet night. One man hauls beams onto his shoulder, another steadies ladders, a third measures cuts with the discipline of a sniper lining up his shot. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Years of muscle memory carry over, turning rebuilding into choreography. The veteran stands among them, his voice low but steady. He says, "This isn't just a barn. This is our post." A soldier grins, sweat already rolling. He says, "Then, we hold it like one." The barn's skeleton rises stronger with every strike, each board nailed in place like a defiant heartbeat. Sparks fly from saws, light cutting through the night. He remembers setting up camp in hostile terrain, tents and sandbags thrown up under fire, survival crafted from urgency. The same urgency lives here now, but with purpose that outlasts war. Neighbors lean on fences, drawn by the noise. What they see isn't rebellion, it's discipline, brotherhood at work. The barn no longer looks like a violation, it looks like a fortress. Curtains shift like nervous eyes. Porch lights blink on one by one, casting pale halos over damp lawns. Neighbors who once whispered now stand still, watching the scene unfold as if it were a show they can't turn away from. Through narrow blinds, a child's face presses against the glass, eyes wide at the sight of men moving with purpose, laughter echoing over the sound of hammers. His mother pulls him back, but he slips forward again, unable to look away. Across the street, a man folds his arms, trying to mask curiosity with disapproval. Yet his eyes linger, longer and longer, until his stance softens. One whispers to another, "They're rebuilding." The reply comes hesitant, almost admiring. Overnight, the barn rises taller with each hour, floodlights throwing sharp shadows across the yard. It isn't defiance the neighbors see now. It is resilience, carved into every swing of a hammer. He remembers crowds once lining streets, cheering his unit home with flags in hand. Here, the cheers are muted, still trapped in throats. But the shift is visible. Silence is no longer cold. It bends into something else, respect. Screens glow in the dark like fireflies. A teenager on the corner holds his phone high, recording as the men hammer and saw with military rhythm. Another neighbor, hidden in shadow, streams the scene live, comments already rolling across the feed. The camera catches sweat shining on foreheads, boots stomping gravel, laughter cutting through the night. It captures the barn rising plank by plank, not with quiet rebellion, but with unshakable order. One veteran wipes his brow and shouts, "Try finding this!" The others roar with laughter, the sound carrying into the neighborhood like a battle. Cry. By morning, the clip spread beyond the cul-de-sac. Strangers type furiously, "This is what loyalty looks like. How dare they try to take this down? Stand with him!" He remembers news cameras filming him and his brothers, stepping off a transport plane, flags waving, hands clapping. The faces were strangers then too, but the roar felt the same. Now, in the glow of cell phones, the HOA's silence is drowned by digital applause. The world has seen enough to decide, and this time, it is on his side. Headlights slow at the end of the street. A black sedan rolls by without stopping, windows tinted, engine low. Inside, the HOA president grips the wheel, his face pale under the glow of the dash. He doesn't step out. He doesn't speak. He drives past slowly, eyes fixed on the barn rising beam by beam under floodlights. Veterans shout, laugh, hammer, each sound a defiance he cannot gavel away. His pen, his notices, his clipped phrases mean nothing against the rhythm of unity. A neighbor on the porch whispers, "Is that him?" Another answers, "He won't come closer." The president's silence used to be power, the kind that made people bow. Tonight it is weakness, a retreat hidden behind glass. The veteran remembers enemy officers watching from ridges, barking orders until their lines collapsed. Authority crumbles fastest when it dares not stand face to face. The sedan turns the corner and disappears. The crowd exhales, some in relief, others in quiet satisfaction. The veteran never looks at the car. He stays with his brothers, hands steady, eyes forward. The message is clear, the barn is still standing, and its builder no longer stands alone. The night deepens, but the work never slows. Between hammer strikes and saw cuts, the men steal moments to breathe, leaning on beams like they once leaned on rifles. One pulls a flask from his jacket, passing it around with a grin. He says, "Same as the old days." Laughter rises, rough and unpolished, echoing across the yard. The veteran closes his eyes for a moment, and he is back under desert stars, sitting around a fire with these same men. Sand in their boots, rifles at their sides, the war buzzing in the distance. They had promised each other then, voices low but certain, "If we make it home, we build. We don't just survive, we live." He opens his eyes to see the barn glowing under. Work lights, their promise nailed into every board. His chest tightens. That vow, born in fire and fear, is alive here now. One soldier slaps a beam with his palm. "This'll outlast all of us." The veteran nods, jaw set. The camaraderie hasn't faded. It has only changed form. Once forged in war, now rebuilt in wood, it binds them tighter than any ordnance ever could. The first light of dawn spills over the rooftops, soft and golden, catching on fresh timber. The barn stands taller than before, its frame reinforced, every nail driven with purpose. What had been marked for destruction now looks like a monument. The men step back, sweat dripping, clothes streaked with dust. One wipes his brow, grinning. He says, "Stronger than the first build." The veteran stares at it in silence, chest rising slow, eyes burning. This isn't just a barn anymore. It is proof. Proof he hasn't bent. Proof they haven't left. Him. Proof that prejudice can swing, strike, and threaten, but still fail to erase. Neighbors trickle onto porches, drawn by the sight. Some clap cautiously, others just stare. The quiet admiration feels different now. Less fear, more respect. He remembers his unit standing at dawn after a night-long firefight, battered but alive, watching the sun crown the horizon. The same feeling surges through him now. Survival turned into victory. The barn gleams in morning light, no longer a violation on paper, but a landmark in flesh and spirit. Against every order it remains. Against every silence, it rises. At first, the crowd only watches. Porch steps creak as neighbors lean forward, arms folded, unsure if they are witnesses or participants. Children tug at sleeves, whispering questions their parents don't answer. The silence stretches, heavy, like it has so many nights before. Then comes a single clap. Slow, hesitant. It echoes down the street like a spark. Another follows. Then, more. Within moments, the silence fractures into rhythm. Murmurs rise, layered with cautious cheers. They rebuilt it overnight. Did you see how they moved? Like soldiers still at war. The applause grows louder. breaking through the quiet that once sheltered fear. Some neighbors stay on their porches, arms crossed, pride, wrestling with shame. But others step closer. They're clapping steady now, heads high. The veterans don't stop their work. They tighten beams, sweep sawdust, pack tools, discipline unchanged. But the sound of clapping wraps around them, proof that silence has finally shifted. He remembers crowds lining streets, flags waving, the roar of homecoming parades. He feels it again, but sharper. Not choreographed patriotism, just raw acknowledgement. The HOA's gavel has ruled with silence. Now the street itself answers back, with applause. The board gathers again, but the air is different. The president straightens his tie, gavel in hand, yet his eyes betray him. He clears his throat once, then again, the sound cracking instead. Of commanding. Order, he begins. But the word wavers. Neighbors fill the hall this time, not just watching but leaning forward, arms uncrossed, waiting. Phones hover openly, ready to record. The crowd has found its voice, and its silence is no longer his to control. He raises a new pen, gripping it too tight. The paper in front of him blurs, hand shaking. We must enforce standards. The veteran rises, steady. He says, "Standards? Or double standards?" Murmurs surge like a tide. Applause flickers, then grows. The president's gavel strikes hard, but the crack of wood against wood sounds desperate, hollow. His voice breaks mid-sentence, reduced to a rasp. The veteran remembers enemy leaders faltering on the ridge, shouting orders no one followed. A voice is only as strong as those who obey it. In the hall, the president's words carry no weight. Authority has left him. Respect has abandoned him. All that remains is a cracked voice echoing into nothing. Morning breaks slow, gold spilling over rooftops, catching on the barn's fresh timber until it gleams like fire. The structure stands taller than before, its beams straight, its nails driven deep, every plank a statement carved into daylight. We are still here. The veterans lean against their trucks, exhausted but proud. One of them exhales, shaking his head with a grin. He says, "Built stronger than they ever imagined." The veteran doesn't answer. He just stares at the barn, chest rising slow, as if the sight alone breathes life back into him. For weeks, notices have tried to erase him, but the morning light crowns him instead. Neighbors gather in twos and threes, silent at first. They aren't just seeing wood. They are seeing unity, resilience, defiance, nailed into place. A woman whispers, "They rebuilt it overnight." Another answers, "No, they made it untouchable." He remembers stepping off the plane years ago, flags waving, crowds cheering. That roar has faded. But here, now, the quiet is louder. This silence isn't complicit anymore. It is reverent. The HOA's power hasn't vanished with papers or gavels. It has evaporated in daylight. The barn glows, and with it, their control burns away. The fence that once cut the street in two now becomes its meeting ground. Neighbors lean against it, cups of coffee in hand. Their voices no longer whispers but conversations carried openly in the morning air. What had been a barrier of suspicion now looks more like a bridge. Children press their palms against the slats, tracing the wood where they once peeked in secret. This time, no one pulls them back. The veteran rests his arm on the rail, nodding at a man across from him. No words at first, just a look, heavy with recognition. Then finally the neighbor speaks. He says, "I was wrong to stay quiet." The reply comes steady, not bitter. The veteran says, "Quiet's heavy. You don't carry it forever." The fence groans lightly under their weight, but it doesn't break. Instead, it holds them both, a symbol reshaped. He remembers the fence, once standing as a wall, dividing courage from fear. Now it becomes the place where neighbors gather to stand, not separate. In that morning calm, it is no longer wood and nails. it is testimony. Proof that lines meant to divide can be leaned on together, holding more than yards. They hold change. The street gathers slowly, feet shuffling across driveways, voices low but growing. For weeks, silence has been the weapon. Neighbors watching, but never standing. This morning, the weight of it cracks. A single clap breaks the stillness. Awkward, hesitant. Then another joins. Within seconds, the rhythm spreads, bouncing from porch to porch until it fills the cul-de-sac. Children clap faster, laughing without fear. Elders follow, palms meeting with deliberate pride. The sound rolls over the barn like thunder, louder than any gavel has ever struck. The veteran stands at the center, hands at his sides. He doesn't raise them. He doesn't need to. The applause isn't for a man alone. It is for survival, for resilience, for a barn that refused to bow. A woman. Near the front calls out, "We see you now." Her voice cracks, but carries. He remembers the roar of a crowd welcoming his unit home, flags waving, brass bands playing. That sound had been orchestrated. This sound is raw, unplanned, real. What once hid in throats finally rises to the air. And the board, watching from across the street, stands stranded in silence, while the neighborhood they ruled chooses a different voice. The board no longer comes with polished shoes and clipped smiles. Their meetings thin, chairs left empty, agendas shortened to avoid the subject that defines them. The president, once loud with rules, now arrives late and leaves early, his gavel carried but never lifted. Neighbors notice. Whispers follow him into the grocery store. Heads turn at the post office. Respect has drained away, leaving only recognition, the kind that stings more than protest. One afternoon he passes by the barn in his sedan. His window stays rolled up, his eyes fixed forward. Inside the yard, veterans lean on beams, laughing, the barn standing taller than his silence. He presses the gas a little harder, disappearing down the street. The veteran remembers enemy officers retreating over ridges, their shouts ignored, their soldiers scattering. Authority doesn't fall with one blow. It crumbles when no one listens. The next week, the HOA sends no letters, no fines, no warnings. The silence that once cut against the veteran now cuts against them. The crowd has shifted. Allegiance is no longer theirs to command. In the stillness, the truth is plain. The board hasn't been defeated by force. They have been left behind. The barn stands complete, dawn light washing across its beams, and for a moment his breath catches. He isn't seeing timber. He's seeing a promise finally kept. He remembers sand whipping across his face, a tent rattling in desert wind. He hunched over a scrap of paper, flashlight dim, pen trembling. If I make it home, I'll build. I'll put my hands to something that lasts. Mortars rumbled outside, but the vow held steady in ink. Now, years later, the barn answers back. Each board is a memory nailed into place. Each nail a vow driven deeper. The laughter of his brothers fills the yard, sealing the bond. A neighbor steps closer, voice low. He says, "You really wrote that back then?" The veteran nods once. "War gave me the promise. This gave me the proof." The barn isn't a shelter anymore. It is legacy, a bridge between past chaos and present peace. The storm tried to strip it down, but instead it revealed what the structure really is. Not wood, not steel, but a soldier's word kept alive. And for the first time since coming home, he feels the vow has been honored. Fully, finally, forever. That barn no longer looks like a simple structure. It breathes with memory. Each plank carries the weight of struggle. Each nail hammers the sound of defiance. Each beam stands tall with the strength of brotherhood. The veterans circle it like guardians, hands brushing the wood the way soldiers once touched rifles before a fight. One whispers, almost to himself, This isn't a barn. It's a monument. Neighbors approach slowly, some resting their palms on the frame. The gesture feels more like reverence than inspection. What they touch isn't just wood. It is justice, embodied. He remembers names etched on a war memorial overseas, soldiers standing in silence, hands tracing carved stone. That same reverence now lives here, in a suburban street, in a barn that has become a symbol against erasure. The veteran steps back, eyes heavy with both pride and exhaustion. He says, "We didn't build it to store tools. We built it to hold the truth. The truth lingers in the air, undeniable. The barn will outlast the paper notices, outlast the gavel strikes, outlast the silence. It is no longer something they threaten to tear down. It has become something no one dares to." The street is quiet again, but this silence is different. It isn't fear. It isn't complicity. It is reflection. Neighbors stand facing the barn as if it is a mirror, each one seeing themselves in the fight that has unfolded. The veteran speaks softly, but his words carry farther than any gavel. He says, "Respect can't be written into rules. Dignity doesn't vanish with fines. You can't legislate what a man has earned." Heads nod, some slowly, some with conviction. The truth is too sharp to deny. He remembers military briefings, where commanders spoke of duty, of rules, of protocol. None of those saved lives. What saved them were bonds, loyalty, the refusal to leave each other behind. Those weren't laws. Those were choices. Here, in the glow of the rebuilt barn, the lesson feels the same. Brotherhood defies bureaucracy. Humanity overrules prejudice. A neighbor murmurs, "Maybe rules keep lawns neat, but they don't keep people whole." The veteran turns, voice firm. He says, "Laws may govern property, but only people decide whether they honor dignity." In that moment, it is clear. The HOA has lost more than a fight. They have lost the claim to define respect. The cul-de-sac no longer feels fractured. Neighbors who once hid behind blinds now stand together in the open, their silence transformed into a kind of unity. The crowd itself has become a character, once complicit, now awakened, reshaped by the courage of one man who refused to bend. Children dart around the barn, laughing, their voices sharp against the memory of quiet nights. Parents stand shoulder to shoulder, no longer shrinking from each other, but meeting eyes with unspoken acknowledgement. The veteran stands apart, watching. He doesn't call for them. He doesn't need to. His defiance has already called them forward. A man from the back finally speaks. He says, "We were wrong to stay quiet." His voice trembles, but it is enough. Others nod. One by one they admit what they've swallowed for too long. Fear kept them silent. His courage freed their voices. He remembers his squad in battle, pinned down, silent until one soldier yelled, "Move!" That single shout turned fear into action. Tonight his stance has done the same. The barn isn't just his anymore, it is theirs. A community once fractured has redefined itself, by the courage of one, multiplied by the awakening of many. Clouds that had weighed heavy for days finally break apart. The storm that once mirrored the conflict now drifts, leaving a clean stretch of blue above the neighborhood. Sunlight pours across wet pavement, catching in puddles like fragments of glass, scattering light toward the barn. Children splash through the water, laughter chasing away the echoes of gavel strikes and whispered threats. The air smells of rain, but it carries no tension anymore, only renewal. The veteran looks skyward, his shoulders loosening. He murmurs, "Storm's done." One of his brothers claps him on the back. "And it didn't take you with it." Neighbors step closer, not out of curiosity but out of ease. Where they once huddled in silence, they now linger in the open, warmed by the same light that crowns the barn. He remembers nights overseas where storms raged so violently they drowned out gunfire, the sky itself deciding whether men lived or died. Here, the clearing sky feels like judgment too. Not a verdict of destruction, but of endurance. The clouds are gone. The barn still stands. And in the calm, the truth settles over everyone. The fight has ended, and resilience has won. The barn stands quiet in the evening light, its beams glowing as the sun dips low. It no longer needs hammers or nails. It breathes on its own now, a monument etched into the heart of the street. The notices are gone. The gavel is silent. What remains is proof. The veteran rests his hand on the wood, eyes steady, voice carrying, softly. He says, "This isn't just mine. It's ours. It's what happens when you stand instead of bow." The crowd lingers, hushed, as if waiting for the structure itself to speak. In its shadow, the fence no longer divides. The silence no longer condemns. The sky no longer thunders. Everything that once pressed against him now stands behind him. He remembers his squad at dawn, battered but alive, standing shoulder to shoulder as the sun rose over their survival. That same light crowns him now, crowns the barn, crowns the street. He turns once, gaze sweeping across neighbors and brothers alike. He says, "The barn still stands, not just of wood and stone, but of loyalty and justice. And the question remains, when the rules bend against dignity, will you stay silent, or will you stand tall?" The screen fades to black. The choice is left with us. Comment your answer below.